Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and happy Sunday. Welcome to another episode of Politics But Make It Fashion. Hey. So, as my listeners know, I was supposed to be at Fashion Week this weekend. It's been a dream of mine to go since I was a child, but unfortunately, my health said I can't go. I ended up with a double ear infection and one of my ears was swollen shut and I couldn't hear. I actually still cannot really hear out of my left ear. So I wasn't able to go. So one of the first things I really wanted to talk about in this episode is kind of the history of Fashion Week, because I had a lot of people ask me like, okay, Amber, what even is it? So there are 138 fashion weeks that are across the world. Some of them are bigger and some of them are smaller. In 1858, the designer Charles Frederick Worth begins to show clients designs in Paris using live models. So before, when people would show designs in clothes, they would be on a mannequin, basically, and that's kind of how they showed clothes. So when he first started using models to show off his designs, this was like super revolutionary. In 1903, a New York store called Enrich Brothers put on the first American fashion show. 1943, Eleanor Lambert launches Press Week. So Press Week would eventually turn into Fashion Week. And it was to showcase all of the American designers. In 1958, Milan Fashion Week was established. And Milan Fashion Week is a lot more kind of outlandish, a lot of maximalist, and a lot of the Italian designers. So you have Prada, Versace, Dolce & Gabbana, Gucci, and designers like that. So then, in 1973, Paris Fashion Week first started. So Paris Fashion Week is when you get like a lot of the big designers. So you have Balenciaga, you have Dior, you have Louis Vuitton. In 1984, London Fashion Week started, and London is kind of like for emerging talent, experimental fashions. This is kind of where you more do edgy and riskier things. A lot of the other fashion shows, sometimes they will, but this is a lot more of the least commercial fashion weeks of it. So you also then have Miami Fashion Week, which in the past couple years has really become kind of big, and it is a lot of ready-to-wear designs, a lot of swimwear, a lot of beachwear. That's kind of what they do there. So you basically have the cycle of Fashion Week starting in New York this week, then it goes to London, then Milan and Paris. Sometimes it may be London first or New York, but Paris and Milan's always the second to last, and Paris is always the last because that's the biggest show. So the people that go to Fashion Week are a few different people. So you have, of course, the models and the model agency who are going, and all the people who that includes, like the hairstylists, makeup artists, and stuff like that. But then you have editors who are from magazines like Vogue, or editors from fashion blogs, or different things that are online. So even like newspapers, like the New York Times may have an editor go for like their fashion section of that newspaper. And then you have press, you have journalists who come, and that's one of the biggest people there because you really want press to see your designs and see the models, and press is free. And so what you hope for is that getting this press would then lead to people buying your clothes. Then you have the buyers, which are kind of like the most important people in the whole Fashion Week situation, because those are the people that go and they will buy either a whole collection or they'll buy specific items from that collection. So I don't know if you've ever heard people talk about like buyers being really important. So if you have stores, for example, I love Macy's, okay? But the Macy's here in NEPA has the worst buyers. Their clothes are terrible. They're so ugly and moo-moo looking and everything has like flowers on it. It's terrible. But if you go to a Macy's in Philly, it's a completely different vibe, completely different style. And that's because they have different buyers. I would honestly say same thing about Burlington Coat Factory. Like we have a new Burlington now, but it used to be somewhere else, and they had a different buyer there, and you could tell because the clothes and the fashion lines and stuff were completely different. Even the brands and the designers that they bring in. So the buyers are really important, and they can really make or break a collection. So that's just a little bit about the history of Fashion Week. I'm disappointed that I wasn't able to go, but in all honesty, I feel like shit. So like, I know that I wouldn't have been at my best working. I wouldn't have been at my best, and I can't hear people. So trying to do interviews and stuff, I feel like would have been a little goofy. My equilibrium is off as well. But I know that since I was invited, I will be able to go again. So I'm not... I know it's going to happen, and hopefully I get to go to all of them. Like, it is my dream to be in Paris for Fashion Week, like, everything, guys. It's, like, the total vibe. So, that's a little bit of the history of Fashion Week, and so something that I kind of learned new for Black History Month was about the Black Ivy style. So, I didn't know it had a name. So when you look back at pictures of like James Baldwin, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, they had a sense of fashion. They all wore like the suits and the tweeds and the polos. It was very Ivy. So basically what Ivy fashion is, that's fashion that is based on Ivy League schools and kind of like the upper middle class. That whole fashion, so you think of like Ralph Lauren, different things and different fashions like that. So newer, think like Farnsworth Bentley. That is Black Ivy style, taken from Ivy style. And the reason that it became so popular in the 50s and 60s was because Black people were seen as less than, and that they didn't matter, and basically the kind of like they were garbage. So the idea was to look a certain way and to present yourself a certain way, to say, I am not garbage. Like, I am the same as you. You can wear your little tweed. I'm wearing my tweed as well. So that's how it started. And I just know he was hot on that bridge. Like, you can't tell me. I don't know how they were not sweating. Okay. So style classification that came from Black men, it started in the 50s and 60s. It's called Black Ivy style. The question they asked was, how can they show their humanity through their fashion? Which is such a cool concept. And guys, that's one of the reasons why I love fashion so much, because it can really tell a story. It can really show who you are. It can give off a vibe. It can really just do so much. So the Ivy League style was seen as just for upper middle class whites. Black Ivy style is a direct challenge of the current status quo. And for some, it was a way to show that Black people could have class and could have elegance. So I love that. I knew that that was that style. You could also think of Kanye West in his college dropout era. That was the whole Black Ivy, kind of like a new school thing. And something else I kind of want to add into this is that there are some really great pictures of all of them, and they're all in color. And we don't see a lot of pictures of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King in color, but it was color. Like, my mom was watching colored TV and watching him speak. And one of the reasons that they do this, and I mean they, like the elusive they, is because they want to make people feel like it was a really long time ago. They want you to think that the civil rights era was so long ago, all of this stuff, but it really wasn't. My mom was a kid. Like, my grandmother was growing up during this. And when you show these pictures of them in black and white, it makes people think and believe that it happened a really long time ago. Like, a lot of the footage and stuff like that was in color. Think JFK, okay? Think JFK. We saw him get shot in color, right? But when you go to look up things about Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, all that stuff is in black and white a lot. And that's the reason why. I had a conversation was because I was telling somebody that Malcolm X was a ginger and they didn't know that. And I was like, how do you not know that? But they had never seen a picture of him in color before. And I just thought that was absolutely insane and tragic. So let's talk about some news, guys. So Trump won the Nevada's Republican caucus. Did any of you guys watch the extremely long and garbled with Vladimir Putin, guys? Okay, so the interview was like 2 hours. It was super, super long. And some of kind of my takeaways from it were that, number one, I don't think we can really trust him. But at the same time, I feel like he's been very transparent about certain things, right? So Putin said that if the U.S. stops giving the Ukraine money and weapons, that the war would be over in a few weeks because they would just everybody. Girl. Okay. He talked about just kind of bringing Russia back to all its glory and stuff. And when I say he's being transparent, he has always been transparent about the fact that he wants to bring Russia back to its full Russia glory state when it was all big and all encompassing. That's what he wants. And he's going to continue to do that. Tucker asked him if he talks to Biden. He said no. He said, but they have people that their people talk to their people. I don't know what that means. The best part of the interview was not just the end, but it was when Putin was talking about the CIA in the US, right? And so he goes, oh, the CIA. Isn't that the branch that you tried to apply for the CIA, right? And they didn't accept you? The CIA is better off not having you in it. The way I was so dead. And Tucker Carlson just looked like he normally looks. Also, I know that Vladimir Putin can speak English, pretends that he can't. And I know he does it just to be a douche. You know what I mean? Saying that. He's not really gonna do that. He's just saying it. No, he said it and he did it. So when when Roe v. Wade was done and then these anti-abortion laws came in, they started to now punish women who were experiencing miscarriages and pregnancy complications. We've all seen these stories played out of women who are being charged for having a miscarriage in a toilet, or for having miscarriages, or for trying to go out of state to have an abortion, or do all of these different things. And miscarriages are so common, and I think that a lot of people don't know that. I know for a fact that men do not know that. And people miscarry all the time. One of the reasons why a lot of women won't tell people that they're pregnant until after their first trimester is because miscarriages are so prevalent, and you don't want to go back and be like, just kidding, I lost the baby. But now that we have these vague, intrusive anti-abortion laws, people don't want to announce that they're pregnant anymore. So you're not seeing these big baby reveals from people. You're actually seeing people reveal their child, once it's born. Send out almost announcements, birth announcements. I just saw a girl that I'd known almost her whole life now. She had a second baby, and they announced her baby, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know she was pregnant. That was so cute. And that was like the third person that I had seen that had kind of done that. And that's the reason, is because people don't want to leave a digital trail of the fact that they were pregnant and now they're not pregnant. And that is sad. And that is absolutely super, super scary. Even people using period tracking apps, people who are using like the apps so that you can know when you're ovulating if you're trying to get pregnant. Even people aren't using those because they're worried about the digital footprint that they're leaving behind with it if something happens. And that's just so sad and crazy. And this is what people were fighting for. And this is what we were saying was going to happen. And so many things are so much bigger than the presidency and bigger than one specific election, especially because our Supreme Court judges are going to be in for life, unfortunately. There definitely needs to be term limits because, it's really, I found it upsetting when they died in office knowing that, like, now this person's gonna have to appoint them. You know what I mean? Like, why not, when your health starts to fail, looking at you, Dianne Feinstein, when your health starts to fail, you resign and you go through that process because you know it's going to happen, instead of leaving it open. So then President Trump had to fill 3 seats, which is crazy, And, guys, don't even get me started on Uncle Thomas, okay? Because Uncle Thomas said that they should get a raise. No, you don't need a raise. What you need to do is care about the American people and do things that the American people actually care about and actually want. The abortion issue, when you're looking at conservative media, Fox News, Republican, things like that, it makes you believe that a lot of people are against it, but they're not. It's a very popular thing, and most people truly believe it's not their business. It's between you, your partner, and your doctor. I don't need to be in it. And that's true. So it's crazy to me how we're making laws that most people honestly just do not want at all. So, and we will take a quick break. Welcome back to Politics But Make It Fashion. And now I want to give some updates on the Israel-Hamas war. And yesterday or today, Biden spoke to Netanyahu about the upcoming ground assault and air assault on Rafah. And he asked Netanyahu to take into account the civilians in this. This is the first time that he's really called out Netanyahu. And I wouldn't even say that was a real call out because that was very mild. 28,000 people are dead. 28,000 people are dead. So the issue with what's happening right now is that if you look at something like this book, right? And this is Gaza, this is the West Bank, right? They've been told to keep moving down, 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 down. And now they're all down here in the south of Gaza in Rafah, and now they're being told to evacuate from that place. The people are asking where they're supposed to go. That the northern Gaza is completely uninhabitable. There's nowhere for them to be. There's nowhere for them to go. It's not safe. They can't leave the country. For all of you people out there saying, why don't they just leave? Israel won't let them leave. They're not a free people that they can just move around freely and just go do stuff. They cannot. There's a story of a boy who is waiting for permission from Israel to get some medical help that he needed. And by the time they finally sent the response, he had already been dead for 35 days. So they have been told to repeatedly move down to the south. So now there are 1.4 million Palestinians living in Rafah, and they have absolutely nowhere to go. So if this ground assault starts and they do air assaults on this area, the area is so small and there's so many people there like, everybody's just gonna die. I don't really understand what anyone expects to happen besides that, because they can't go anywhere. Another update I have is about Trump. He was talking, of course, as he does, and he said that if countries do not pay NATO and pay their tab, that he would not protect and help any countries if they were ever attacked and invaded by Russia. He said that he would even encourage an attack to happen because they have not paid into that. So NATO is kind of the biggest and most powerful and kind of cohesive that it's ever been. That is a whole nother subject on NATO and that whole thing. But yeah, so that was kind of a weird, interesting thing that happened. And I just really want us to all still remember that there is this war going on. It's been going on for about 4 months now, and that there are constantly children dying, constantly children's limbs being blown off. There was a father who had to cut off his daughter's leg without anesthesia, and that's happening all the time. Earlier today, I watched a video of a mother giving her infant a date to suck on because the baby was hungry and they were starving and they did not have any food. And then ignorant people in the comments were saying, well, why can't they breastfeed? If you are starving and you are thirsty, you will not produce milk. Your body has to be at a certain level for you to be able to have a healthy milk supply. If you are experiencing a lot of trauma, physical or emotional, if you are getting injured, if you are not drinking enough water and drinking enough fluids, if you are not eating enough, women who are breastfeeding need to eat almost double the amount of calories that you would regularly intake because your body is producing milk and it needs all of that. So there are still so many pregnant women in Palestine. There are still so many infants that do not have food, that do not have water. And part of the reason that a lot of them moved down to Rafah was because they were told that they would be able to get some humanitarian aid and help and assistance. But that hasn't happened. Women are tearing parts of tents and using that for pads for their period. So I don't want to get too graphic into that, but think about that. A lot of my ladies that are out here listening to the podcast, think about taking a dirty piece of cloth and putting it in your underwear to wear as a pad. Not just how terrible that is, but also the effects that that will have on your body as well as a woman. If your area isn't sanitary, it's just going to get infected. That's just going to happen. And that's going to be such another issue, and something that if they're already not receiving medical care and getting help, that they're not going to be able to do anything about it. So imagine bacterial vaginosis or yeast infections or probably some type of something I don't even know about, because they're ripping off pieces of tents and putting it in their panties so that they can have pads for menstruation. They're wrapping dates in gauze and putting it in infants' mouths so that they can suck on it, so that they can get some type of nutrition and liquid because they are starving to death. And we will see this week how this all happens. I still hope that there's a ceasefire and they can come to some solution, because this is just really tragic and the world is watching. We're all watching this happen, and I feel like we're just really not doing anything about it. So that is all I have for you guys today on Politics But Make It Fashion. Make sure that you guys give us a subscribe and a follow wherever you listen to podcasts. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. Make sure you follow us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is Politics But Make It Fashion. We are on TikTok at Politics But Make It Fashion, and you can find us on Instagram at Politics But Make It Fashion 1. And we will chat soon.